Hi guys, alright, so I'm going to quickly do this video. So as many of you guys know, I had my appointment on Tuesday about having a VBA2C with our third baby whenever we conceive it. I made this appointment actually before we were pregnant because I'm a planner, so to me, as much work as I can possibly do before I'm pregnant, the better. And definitely knowing about a VBA2C is important because the fact is, originally, our plan back in, when did I talk to the first doctor? Last July, last July, and at that point we were thinking of having a third, but it was let me see where, I wasn't willing to just settle for having another C-section. So we started this journey of talking with doctors, and we have a hospital that would do it, but I don't really like the hospital for a C-section, and that's been my thought of, okay, well, if I need to have a C-section. But anyways, so I went, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised. She said she would definitely do a VBA2C after 2 C-sections, and that she was going to talk with her fellow colleagues to see who else would be willing to do one for us, because she said it's great to have one doctor, she said, but it's even better to have 3 or 4 doctors. She said, so that way if I go into labor and she's not there, and I end up with a doctor that is totally against VBA2Cs after 2 C-sections, she's like, I'm then not pushed into, you know what, let's just do an emergency C-section. And so she was saying, okay, what about if you need to have a C-section? How would you feel? And I said, whatever. She's like, wow. She's like, most of them get very upset or very, they have a breakdown and go, I just want to, actually have my child. And I said, but either way, you still have your child. It doesn't, I said, for me, after going through, I said, right now we have the recurring miscarriage. I said, I just want that third baby. I don't care. I just don't care. I said, either way, I still have the baby. So, I said, like, I don't care if it's a boy or a girl. I don't care. It's just the third baby. Doesn't matter. She said it's really good because she said, yeah, she's like, a lot of them will break down and go, I really wanted it. This is going to be our last child, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no. I said, those are probably people that have never really had too many losses or whatever. And she said, yeah, a lot of them are, are like that. And she said, that's a common thing that, she said, ones that have had a lot of losses, she's like, they could care less, like you. So then her and I were talking about, she said, if you need a C-section, I said, would you guys be willing to do a gentle C-section? And she's like, I don't even know exactly what it is. She's like, she's like, we've heard about them. She said, but we don't. She's like, I don't even know what it is. And I explained to her, I'll do a whole video on really what it is. And she said, she couldn't see why they couldn't do it. And I'll do a video on what is a gentle C-section. For people that cannot find a hospital that can do a VBA2C, or they don't have a VBA2C, is another idea, so that way it can still make it a very special experience without it being a surgery. It's still a surgery, it doesn't change what it is, but at least it makes it a little bit less stressful. So then I started talking to her about what was going on with me. I said, for some reason I can get pregnant, but I just can't stay that way. And I showed her, the blood work that I'm about to do, and she's like, you know what, even if one of those comes back positive, she's like, it could just be a fluke thing. And she made me feel a lot better about it, because she said, well, how do you feel every time things are coming back normal? I said, I go, oh my gosh, I'm going to get pregnant, and I'm never going to make it to 8 weeks. I am never going to make it to 8 weeks. And she's like, no, she's like, every time it happens, she's like, your percentage of it happening again are going down. She said, not really. She said, but think of it that way. She said, because when you think about it, that means that maybe it was a fluke. She said, you know, he just ended up, you know, having a couple flukes in a row. She's like, but that's to look at it that way, which is a lot nicer to hear it from another doctor that said, you know, don't, you know, because I haven't really been able to have a good conversation with my doctor about it. And I said, well, what about progesterone? She's like, well, she said, in her mind, she doesn't prescribe it because she said, we have the reproductive endocrinologist. She's like, that we will then have them analyze it and figure out if you really need it. And I said, well, that was one of the things that they said I would probably have to talk to. She's like, oh, well, hold on 1 second. And I'm like, what are you doing? She brought in one of the reproductive endocrinologists, and she said, kind of explained to Janet what, and she said, well, she's like, when you start, there's the the general test that she's like, we have everybody do. She's like, no matter what your problem is, she's like, and then your husband will have to do it. She's like, for their practice at least, it's an automatic semen analysis. And of course, then my husband got a little nervous because he's like, oh, great. And she said, well, she's like, it's not fair to make her go through all the testing. You have to go through it too. And she said, it's not, she said, for us, she's like, I don't expect to see anything. And she said, since we don't have problems getting pregnant, she's like, it doesn't really make sense for her to monitor a complete cycle. She said, if anything, she'd want to just monitor the second half of my cycle. And that's it, because she said that would probably make sense to her. And she asked if there's possibility of blood clotting issues, and I said, well, I don't know. She's like, well, I'm not giving you any medical advice, because she said, I am not your doctor, I am not your reproductive endocrinologist. She said, but she's like, talk to your regular doctor about low-dose aspirin, and she said, and progesterone. She's like, you know, she's like, in her mind, she said, I would prescribe it in a heartbeat, the progesterone, even if your levels were okay. She's like, if your levels were high, absolutely not. She said, but if they were on the low side of okay, because I told her what I came at, and she said, she's like, yeah, she said, but if we keep you feeling okay and not being stressed, she's like, I would prescribe it just to keep you relaxed. So it was definitely very nice to talk to her about it. So it went very well. I felt a lot better. And they said they would talk to my regular doctor, and they would say if I need to see a reproductive endocrinologist, she would suggest that she would tell my doctor that she would take me on, so that way, and she said there's a lab actually just up the road from me, so I don't have to drive all the way to the city because it was nuts. So, but I just wanted to show you, because as a lot of you guys know, I go tomorrow for my HCC levels. Last week, I only went down to 400. I went from 800 to 400. Definitely not too happy. But I just wanted to show you these tests. Sorry. Oh, sorry. All right. This is from Saturday, so as you can see, that line's pretty dark. And then this is this morning, very, very light. Sorry, it's blurry. Very, very light. So I'm hoping. So, yeah. So yeah. Hoping my levels are a lot lower, because 400 definitely sucked to hear. Because it means it literally went in half. I thought it would at least go a little bit lower than that. So, but I will talk to you guys tomorrow when I get my levels. Hopefully I'll have them before I go to work. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.